Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. We've been watching the scene in Ripon, Wisconsin. That is the birthplace of the Republican Party shortly before the Civil War, before the election of Abraham Lincoln. And it's the place where former Republican Congresswoman Liz Cheney just joined Kamala Harris, vice president, for a joint campaign appearance. Taking to the stage amid chants of "Thank you, Liz," Cheney endorsed the vice president and laid out the stakes of this election.
I tell you, I have never voted for a Democrat. But this year, I am proudly casting my vote for Vice President Kamala Harris. As we meet here today, our republic faces a threat unlike any we have faced before. A former president who attempted to stay in power by unraveling the foundations of our republic, by refusing to accept the lawful results confirmed by dozens of courts of the 2020 election. We cannot turn away from this truth. In this election, putting patriotism ahead of partisanship is not an aspiration. It is our duty.
Now, to state the obvious, personally, I don't agree with a lot of Liz Cheney's politics. I imagine a lot of you watching feel the same way. In fact, I'd say basically I oppose just about everything she's advocated for in the course of her public life. Except one thing. The most important thing. This is someone who put her whole political career, her future in the Republican Party, a party to which she was born, right? An heiress, in a sense. She put it all on the line for American democracy. She's someone who believes Donald Trump is a unique threat.
Donald Trump was willing to sacrifice our Capitol to allow law enforcement officers to be beaten and brutalized in his name, and to violate the law and the Constitution in order to seize power for himself. I don't care if you are a Democrat or a Republican or an independent. That is depravity, and we must never become numb to it. Any person who would do these things can never be trusted with power again.
Now, the health and the future of American democracy is very clearly, obviously, on the ballot this election. But just because something is important, like whether we're going to be a democracy or not, it doesn't necessarily mean it's good campaign fodder. There is reason to believe, though, that just like 2 years ago, running on this core message, like we are Americans, we're a democracy and want to keep that going, that's a winning message. Take a look at this. This is a graph from 2022. The green line on this graph shows President Joe Biden's approval rating from the time he took office in January 2021 to September of 2022. You could see it was going pretty steadily down until the end of that summer, 2022, when it picks up and reverses course. You see that little just tick up in the bottom there? Now, this trend came in the wake of the Supreme Court's decision at the end of June overturning Roe v. Wade. Of course, over the course of June, July, millions of Americans also watched 8 hearings held by the January 6th committee. And so with the midterm elections approaching, President Biden Democrats saw where the mood of the country was, and they definitely ran on those issues, abortion and particular democracy. Remember that just ahead of Labor Day weekend, remember this speech? We took it live, I think. It was just ahead of Labor Day weekend, President Biden delivered this primetime address in front of Independence Hall, warning that our democracy was at stake.
For a long time, we've told ourselves that American democracy is guaranteed, but it's not. We have to defend it, protect it, stand up for it, each and every one of us. That's why tonight I'm asking our nation to come together, unite behind the single purpose of defending our democracy regardless of your ideology.
Now, remember, at the time, remember the discourse around this, right? It wasn't clear if that message was going to work. Sort of an open question. And there were a lot of people out there who thought that it was out of touch or tone deaf or even elitist, that real voters, real people, really only cared about grocery prices. And they were wrong. Biden and Democrats defied all the expectations. They pulled off a historic win for a still relatively unpopular incumbent president. The Democrats bet and won 2 years ago on the idea that it's actually condescending to think that ordinary people, plumbers and cab drivers and teachers and nurses, don't understand or care about democracy. What, that's too highfalutin for them? Of course, working people, people without a lot of money, people without formal education, they're smart. In fact, the reason we have a democracy in the first place is because we trust that all of us together can make these decisions. I think the majority of people of all different kinds of walks of life, all different levels of formal education, credentials, don't want a dictatorship. I think if you force the issue in those terms, the pro-democracy side wins. And that, again, that was the message, and it worked in 2022. So here we are again, 2 years later. This time around, the other side knows, believe me, they know, that January 6th, the images of the men bashing the cops' brains in, the attempt to overthrow the American Republic, is an enormous political liability. Instead of engaging with it or admitting to it, they are just desperately trying to run away from it.
Did he lose the 2020 election?
Tim, I'm focused on the future. Did Kamala Harris censor Americans from speaking their mind in the wake of the 2020 COVID situation?
That is a damning non-answer.
That is a damning non-answer. Republican House Majority Whip Tom Emmer from Minnesota, where Tim Walz is from, has been running around blaming the media. It's the media's fault for being obsessed with Donald Trump's attempted coup.
Did you think he'd get that question? Did you talk about how to answer the 2020 question?
Listen, this is, again, he answered it. You don't like the answer, but he answered it. This is something that you folks in the media want to focus on a regular basis. The American people, and thank goodness J.D. Vance and Donald Trump are focused on the election and how to fix this country. Again, Caitlin, we're talking about an election that's going to take place in 35 days. What are you doing talking about something that's 4 years ago? We can have this
Trump
debate
is still talking about it
some other time going forward. The people are hurting.
Okay, that's a tell, right? You don't have to, be particularly read into politics to understand the gentleman on the right of your screen doesn't want to talk about it because it's bad for him. Because the guy who's effectively his boss summoned a violent mob to try to end American democracy. So they want to change the subject because they understand, again, a majority of the country wants to preserve American democracy. Of course, Donald Trump himself is a bit of a different story. He is too obsessed with the whole thing to ever drop it.
It was a rigged election. You have to tell Kamala Harris, that's why I'm doing it again. If I thought I lost, I wouldn't be doing this again. You know where I'd be right now? On the beaches of Monte Carlo, maybe, or someplace. Be having a nice life.
All right, you see that little thing that we put up on the screen to let you know when that was? That was today. We're not running file footage. Today, in Saginaw, Michigan, a few days after Tom Emmer was yelling about how the media is obsessed with it, Donald Trump is talking about the 2020 rigged election. And there's a reason that has not worked for Trump. And it's while the pro-democracy message has been so salient. No matter our background, our income, our education level, our positions on things, I do think Americans believe, fundamentally, a majority of us, in our democratic experiment and want it to continue. So here we are, 33 days to go. Donald Trump and his authoritarian aims on the ballot once again. J.D. Vance pledging to do whatever it takes on Donald Trump's behalf, up to and including overturning elections. He's on the record with the help of the Supreme Court. Trump has tried to wipe his crimes against the country from voters' minds. And on the debate stage 2 days ago, his running mate, J.D. Vance, refused to tell tens of millions of Americans if he would help Donald Trump do it again. Just in the last 24 hours, we got new evidence from Special Prosecutor Jack Smith about how far Trump was willing to go to foment the coup on January 6th. And tonight, the birthplace of the Republican Party, Liz Cheney, stood up to remind us that he is really going to try to do it again. But if we come together as a pro-democracy coalition, we can stop it.
We have a shared commitment as Americans to ensuring that future generations live in a nation where power is transferred peacefully, where our leaders are men and women of good faith, and where our public servants set aside partisan battles to do what's right for this country. I ask you to meet this moment. I ask you to stand in truth, to reject the depraved cruelty of Donald Trump.
Now, I may live to eat these words. I don't know the future. No one else does. But I am willing to put my faith in the American people on this argument. that we want to be a democracy and not a Donald Trump dictatorship.